Right, so let's get started. So thank you for coming. My talk is going to be the Asian order flow nobody's chasing. So brief introduction of myself. My name is Daiki, leading the BD side of the DeltaForesight, which is the Japanese yen CDP stablecoin, which is not yet launched, so you guys never heard of it. And I previously worked in the Uniswap Labs international growth team, and then design and execute GTM strategy across APAC. I'm Japanese, so I also actively contributing to the local regulation, which is currently there's a bunch of the program to making a local regulation. So I was kind of actively contributing to the regulation, which will be like usage of the DeFi will be also included. And also, I run the Ethereum by data from the East delegation from Lido Finance. So that's brief introduction of myself. I don't go deep into the introduction of the DeltaForesight, but I'm gonna just get you two numbers. The first one is the Japanese monetary depth, and the bottom is the total value of Japanese stablecoin issuance. So there's a huge gap. So like we are kind of trying to close the gap so that like more and more money will be deployed on chain. So I'm gonna start talking about the market, the current market structure, which is firstly, like, let's start by the understanding of the current market. Ethereum, is losing our value into the Solana and the layer 2. To more specifically, this is like recent 1 month data. We lose about 4.6 million into Solana. We also lose 7.6 million into Arbitrum, and we also lose another 5.8 million into Tron. We have some inflow from base, but this is too tiny to cover the other major 3 outflow. Then we see a bunch of the collaboration from DeFi protocol, such as Eura is collaborating with Securitize to bring real world asset as a collateral of lending. And also Uniswap also has a partnership with Securitize and BlackRock to trade BIDO, their stablecoin, will be traded 24/7 in a P2P. As a person who works in the Uniswap Labs, I see this trend as the same problem with what we saw. The Ethereum is losing the value to layer 2 and the Solana. So previously at Uniswap Labs, we had one of the KPI, internal KPI we had is the share of trading volume in a single chain. So for example, how many % of trading volume will be done within the Uniswap Labs Uniswap ecosystem against PancakeSwap or like Airdrop, whatever. But this KPI make no sense at this moment because Ethereum itself is losing the value. So no matter how we successfully maintain the share of the trading volume, if the TVL of Ethereum itself is losing, it makes no sense. So that's why I assume the headquarters of Uniswap Lab decided to think about what kind of order flow we can bring outside of the blockchain and then deploy these assets within the Uniswap ecosystem. I see same motivation in the Euro. So that's kind of how I see the current market, how I see the trend of real world asset coming into DeFi. This is all about how to survive in constellation of Ethereum ecosystem itself is losing value into layer 2 and Solana. So the problem here is like a lot of the protocol are chasing a same order flow, basically, which is trying to capture the off-chain value within like traditional finance sector in the United States. But like, you know what, like Uniswap has been discussing the collaboration in between Securitize and BlackRock over 1.5 years. So if you guys new to like real world asset, and then trying to start negotiating with like these like major United States TradFi, it's too late. So if like bunch of the protocol trying to chase, like trying to like capture the value from like United States, it's too late, unfortunately. So that's why I would like to bring the new market, which is Asian market. So brief introduction of Asian market, I basically would like to talk about the 3 countries, Japan, Korea, and Singapore, because of like this number. The house deposit, which is basically like mentioning the how many amount of the value is captured in like individual house. The total number is like 9.5 trillion in like these 3 countries, and average cost of cross-border payment is like way much huger than the case of Europe and the United States. And also the AUM of international, AUM of like institutional company across APAC is like that much huge, like 28 trillion. So that's, I would say that's a huge market. And then these like institutional company in APAC, they start to thinking about like how to deploy the capital on chain, what they got to do. But the problem here is like in the APAC, we have no major DeFi protocol, unfortunately. So most of the like globally recognized protocol is based in the Europe or United States. But if you look into the Asian market, the raise from TradFi, which is like the need of they would like to utilize their asset into on-chain. These needs is emerging, but the problem is like there is a huge problem, which is like the DeFi protocol is based in the United States and Europe, but like these protocols supposed to absorb their needs from APAC, but the DeFi protocol doesn't understand like doesn't properly understand like the emerging needs from APAC. So that's why like I would like to shrink the gap, like informational gap throughout this talk. So after talking with a lot of the protocol, a lot of the DeFi protocol, I found like 3 major bottlenecks, which is first one, language barrier. So we Asian, the English is like not like primary language for most of us, and the regulatory uncertainty is another problem. Most of the country, the regulator is just sit and wait the MiCA and the Clarity Act, like how these like framework will be settled down. Like they are just like sitting and wait. So like that's another problem. And the last problem is a challenge of the localization. I will say if you would like to do some community-based strategy, that's not gonna work here, because like for me, the community-based strategy is something you're gonna throw your money into trash bin, because even though no matter how your effort based in the community-based strategy is, firstly, you have to localize, you have to translate all of your website. You also have to promote your product in local languages such as like Korean, Japanese, whatever, and Chinese. And then you also have to empower local ambassador as same power as your main social account. So like this is something like too much. So I would say like community-based strategy is not something appropriate when you like to reach out to the APAC market. Otherwise, I just suggested focusing on a 2B marketing and 2B strategy. So the case of Japan, like how to proceed with 2B strategy is the first one is like the POC. So in Japan, this year is pretty much informed, because the regulation is going to be changed. Currently, there is a law which trying to cover variety of the blockchain sector, but usages of the DeFi is not recognized. It's not like their mind. So the situation is about to change. The amended law coming to force this summer is going to cover the DeFi. But the problem is like a regulator doesn't fully understand the DeFi. So one of the feasibility I see is DeFi protocol is start a POC with Japanese financial institution. I don't recommend DeFi protocol to establish legal entity here in Japan because of the ambiguity. So just set the local financial institution on the front man and then let them use your protocol as a part of the POC. And then like co-create design, co-create the framework that you guys would like to, that you guys request into the Japanese market. Like you don't have to take any risk, but just let the Japanese financial institution take the risk. So this is like one of the feasibility. And then like these, like a Japanese financial institution will directly talk into the regulator. And then like you can control over like how you can create a DeFi-friendly framework. And also, it's pretty much notable to mention that SMBC Nikko, one of the largest Japanese stratified securitized security firm, they just launched like DeFi focusing department in this February. So like this is one of the like easiest way I see across the APAC if you would like to like dive into the APAC country. And also Japan has like huge market in terms of the stablecoin potential and personal financial asset, which is basically idling in a bank account. Talking about Korea, Korea is also a huge market because if you look into the population, the more than like 30%, 32% of the individual having a crypto exchange account, which is like larger than the equity, the total number of the equity account. And also stablecoin, law in the stablecoin is also about to set. So if you guys also like look into like stablecoin market in Korea, Korean won stablecoin market, that will be also the one feasibility. If you are like global financial conglomerate, Singapore would be the ideal way. Unfortunately, in the Singapore market, the retail usages of the DeFi and the regulation of the DeFi is not ready in compared to the market in Japan, the case of the Japan and Korea. But the Singapore is one of the unique country in terms of they trying to collaborate with like global financial conglomerate and then trying to, the governance itself, the government itself is trying to do something with like financial conglomerate. So if you like to like create like more broader regulation and a framework, Singapore would be much more better. But if you are like a DeFi protocol, if you are like a stablecoin issuer, if you are like a real world, if you are doing some business in a stable real world asset, Korea and Japan is much more feasible. So let's summarize. So the language barrier, it doesn't justify, like if you hire any person who can speak both local language and English, that will be totally sad. And then if you are worried about like regulatory ambiguity, that's also fine. Just start POC with your ideal market. And then, yeah, some of the people say that the building a relationship with a local Asian financial institution is like way much harder than the case of the collaboration with the company in the United States or Europe. But that's also fine if you do any POC with like local financial institution, that will accelerate this gap. And also, this year is like going to be massive in terms of like framework design across any APAC country. So if it looks like you will be either the first banking or let other protocol to penetrate the market you would like to dive in. So like first move can earn structurally dominant fee share. So like this is one thing I would like to bring here in the ECC. Once again, like the layers of like financial institution across APAC, like they really wanted to utilize their asset on chain, but like they have to collaborate with DeFi protocol, which is not basically based in the same area. So the path is pretty much simple. Firstly, you got to choose the market, either Japan, Korea, Singapore, and then like structure one POC, and then let's see how it goes. But so this is like basically the like high level view of to be like strategy. But if you look into like retail strategy, I think like Vietnam and Thailand is also like growing huge in terms of user base. So that's I don't cover like the retail side basically, but that's also another feasibility. So that's it. If you would like to reach out to like any of the APAC market, just reach out to me in a Telegram or X, or like I will be staying here for a while. So let's talk. Thanks so much. If you have any question, I'm happy to take it. Cool, thanks.